Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.
Okay, so you know how people keep saying Social Security is like a Ponzi scheme?
Right.
Like, it's a pretty serious claim, and it definitely makes you wonder if the whole thing is gonna, crash and burn eventually. So today, we're gonna unpack all of that. We're really gonna deep dive into how Social Security works based on, actual facts, and then see if that whole Ponzi scheme idea actually holds any water.
Yeah, and it's an important question. When we're talking about Social Security, the basic idea, the thing we have to understand right off the bat, is that it's what they call pay-as-you-go. So our sources from the Social Security Administration and the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities basically say that what that means is that the benefits that people are getting today, like retirees, are funded by the taxes that people who are working right now are paying.
Okay, so it's like current workers are paying for current retirees.
Exactly.
Got it. We also have this definition from Investopedia about, what a Ponzi scheme even is, to help us compare. So what are we even talking about when someone says Ponzi scheme?
Well, Investopedia, they break it down. They say it all comes down to paying the early investors with the money from the later investors.
Okay.
And all the while promising these huge returns with, basically no risk.
Yeah.
It's this illusion of, magic money.
Right.
But it depends entirely on a constant stream of new people joining and putting money in.
Okay, so what you're saying is if the new people stop joining.
Then the whole thing falls apart.
Right, it all collapses.
And the thing that Investopedia really points out, which is kind of fascinating, is how they maintain this illusion,
how do they make it look like it's working?
Right, exactly. Most of the money in a Ponzi scheme isn't actually invested to generate real returns.
It's not actually growing.
No, it's usually just siphoned off by the person who's running the whole operation.
So they're pocketing it.
Yeah, basically. And those, profits that people see early on, those are just money shuffled around from the new people who joined.
So it's not real growth?
No, not at all.
Okay, that's pretty wild. And Investopedia gives us some pretty big, memorable examples of how bad these schemes can get. There's Charles Ponzi, the original guy back in the 1900s, and then more recently there was Bernie Madoff.
Oh, yeah.
That whole thing in 2008.
Sugar.
We're talking billions of dollars just poof, gone.
Yeah. And Investopedia also points out the red flags from the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, things to watch out for. If someone's promising you these crazy high returns with no risk.
Yeah, that seems too good to be true, right?
Right. Or if the returns are always consistent, regardless of what the market is doing, that's suspect. Or if the investments aren't registered, the sellers aren't licensed, or if they're super secretive about how things work or try to make it sound way too complicated, that's all, big warning signs.
Yeah, and they also say that if you try to get your money out and it's a huge hassle, they give you the runaround, that's a red flag too.
Absolutely.
So let's look at how Social Security works. How is it actually funded?
Right. So the Social Security Administration says that their funding comes from this specific payroll tax. And for this year, 2025, it's 6.2% paid by both you and your employer. So really 12.4% total.
Okay.
But if you're self-employed, you got to pay the whole 12.4% yourself.
Right.
And that's on your earnings up to a certain amount.
Mm-hmm.
This year, it's about $176,100, according to the SSA.
Okay, and I know there's, a ton of money involved in Social Security. Do we know, exactly how much is coming in each year?
Well, for 2023, the SSA tells us that the total income for it's split into two funds. The Old Age and Survivors Insurance, that's OASI, and then there's Disability Insurance, DI.
Right.
And the total income for those two was, get this, $1.351 trillion.
Trillion.
With a T. And the vast majority of that, $1.233 trillion, came straight from those payroll taxes we were talking about.
Okay.
And then there was another $51 billion that came from taxing the benefits, taxing some of the Social Security benefits that people get. And then there's $67 billion from interest earned on the reserves, so the trust funds.
Okay, so that's where the money is coming from. Where does it all go?
Well, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, they really highlight this. All that income, every dollar from the payroll taxes and those other sources, goes straight into those trust funds, the OASI and the DI.
Okay.
And here's the key point. Every benefit that's paid out and all the costs of running the program come from those same trust funds.
So it's like a self-contained system.
Exactly.
Which, is really different from one person just taking all the cash.
Oh, yeah, completely different from a Ponzi scheme. And the SSA also points out that, like, the tax rates and stuff, those are set by law. And even that income limit, that taxable maximum, that changes automatically as wages go up across the country.
So it's all out in the open.
Yeah, very transparent.
Okay, so we talked about pay as you go, but if it works that way, why isn't Social Security like the government running a Ponzi scheme?
Right, that's the question.
What's the big difference?
The big difference is the purpose of it and the whole structure.
Okay.
So Social Security isn't about making fake profits for people by constantly recruiting new members, right?
Right.
It's a program, a social insurance program, set up by law with a goal,
And that goal is?
providing a safety net.
Yeah.
Like a system of benefits for retirement, disability, and for families when someone dies. There isn't some mastermind behind the scenes, like in a Ponzi scheme, just getting rich by tricking people.
Okay, so it's not about making someone rich. It's about helping people when they need it.
Right, collective security, not just individual profit. That's a key difference.
Makes sense. What about the trust fund reserves? Those seem pretty important.
They are. And the CBPP really emphasizes this. So for a long time, Social Security actually had more money coming in than going out.
Okay.
And they took that extra money and invested it in U.S. Treasury securities.
So it's not like invested in some risky stuff.
No, no. And the CDPP says that these securities are backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government.
Okay, so that's about as safe as it gets.
Exactly. And what the CBPP points out is that since 2021, Social Security has been dipping into these reserves.
Oh, okay.
Because now more money is going out than coming in.
So are we like running out of money? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's more complicated than that. See, the program still works on that pay-as-you-go idea. It's just that now they're using some of those reserves to make sure benefits get paid.
Got it. So the big question everyone's thinking about is, what happens if the Social Security funds run out? Do we look back and say, see, told you it was a Ponzi scheme?
That's a great question, and here's where it gets really interesting. Our sources say that Social Security does face, a long-term shortfall, projected to be about 1.2% of GDP over 75 years. But the thing is, it's actually fine right now. It's got enough money. But those trust funds, they could be depleted by sometime around 2035. Now, here's a really important distinction to make. The disability insurance, or DI trust fund, that's projected to be okay for the next 75 years. The one that might run out of money is the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Fund. That's OASI. That one might be depleted around 2033.
Okay, so we're talking about two separate funds, potentially with two separate timelines.
Right. But even if they were to run out completely, the CBPP makes this very clear. Benefits wouldn't just stop. The system would still have money coming in from payroll taxes.
Okay.
And that money would be enough to cover around 83% of the benefits that have been promised.
Okay, so it wouldn't just go to zero.
Exactly. And that right there is a huge difference between Social Security and a Ponzi scheme. When a Ponzi scheme falls apart, the whole thing implodes, and those so-called profits, they just evaporate.
Boof, gone.
But here, even if those reserves run dry, people would still get most of their benefits because of that steady stream of payroll tax revenue.
So that sounds like a financial problem, like a shortfall, not like some giant scam.
Right. A challenge to be solved, not proof of fraud.
So it sounds like even if down the road Social Security has to make some changes, it wouldn't suddenly turn into a scam.
Exactly. It's not going to be like, oh, we were lying to you this whole time.
Right.
Because it's built on this structure of collecting taxes and paying benefits that would continue even if some adjustments had to be made.
Okay, so just to be super clear, what are the big absolute differences between Social Security and a Ponzi scheme?
Well, first of all, Social Security is a program, a real program, created by law.
Right.
And it's designed to help people in retirement, or if they're disabled, or when a family member dies.
So it has a purpose, it has a goal.
Exactly. It's not some get-rich-quick scheme promising crazy returns.
Okay.
And secondly, it's transparent. Like all the financial details, that's public information. Ponzi schemes are usually shrouded in secrecy.
Right.
And Social Security is also regulated by the government. And then the last thing, the returns. Those aren't fake profits. They're benefits that people are entitled to by law.
Okay.
And even if there are challenges in the future, the program's designed to keep going. It's not going to collapse like a Ponzi scheme.
Okay, so to come full circle, back to that original question, is Social Security a Ponzi scheme? Based on everything we've talked about, the answer is no.
A definite no.
No.
It might look similar on the surface with that whole pay-as-you-go thing, but when you look at the structure, the purpose, how open it is,
Yeah.
and the nature of the benefits, it's completely different from a Ponzi scheme, which is deceptive and ultimately unsustainable.
Absolutely. Now, we have seen that there are some long-term financial challenges that policymakers have got to figure out,
Right.
and it's super important that they do.
It's not about uncovering some fraud.
Right. It's not like that.
No, it's about keeping this essential program going for millions of people.
Right. It's about being responsible and making the necessary adjustments to keep this vital system afloat.
Yeah.
So here's something to think about, just a final thought. Imagine if a program that's supposed to provide a safety net for people in retirement and for people with disabilities was actually dependent on constantly recruiting new people, like a Ponzi scheme, just to survive.
Right.
That idea, it really highlights the true purpose of Social Security and how it really works.
Yeah, totally different from a Ponzi scheme.
Right, a world apart.
Absolutely.
And that's our deep dive for today.
Thanks for listening.
We'll catch you next time.
Please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps.